My fiancée said I was a backup, so I destroyed her on our engagement party. My name is Graham, a 29-year-old graphic designer based in a mid-sized city in the Midwest. I run a modest design studio downtown, employing a couple of part-time staff and catering to a mix of corporate and creative clients. It's not a glamorous life, but it's one I've built with dedication and passion. I met Delia, a 27-year-old pharmaceutical sales representative, at a charity marathon event. I was handling the event's branding, designing banners, t-shirts, and promotional materials. After the race, Delia approached my booth to compliment the designs. She was confident, engaging, and had a laugh that was genuinely infectious. We exchanged numbers, and our connection was immediate. Our relationship blossomed quickly. Delia seemed genuinely interested in my work, often asking about my design process and even bragging about my projects to her friends. She was ambitious, driven, and had a clear vision for her future. I admired that about her. However, as time went on, subtle changes began to surface. Around our one-year anniversary, Delia started making comparisons between my career and those of her colleagues in finance. She'd say things like, "Imagine if you worked at a big agency like Jeff, we could vacation in the Maldives instead of just Miami." She'd show me pictures of luxurious homes on Instagram, suggesting, "This is where we'd live if you were at that major firm downtown." Delia began encouraging me to apply to large corporate design firms, believing it would elevate our lifestyle. But I was content with my studio, proud of the work I produced, and valued the autonomy it provided. To her, though, it seemed insufficient. Her critiques extended beyond my career. She started commenting on my wardrobe, gifting me designer clothes for special occasions and insisting I look the part to attract higher-paying clients. Initially, I appreciated the gesture, but it soon felt like she was trying to mold me into someone else. At her company events, she'd coach me on how to present myself, advising against discussing my independent projects or pro bono work, suggesting it might not resonate with her colleagues. It felt as though she was embarrassed by the very aspects of my career that I held dear. Delia's attitude towards my friends was also concerning. She'd make passive-aggressive remarks about my best friend, Marcus, a dedicated music teacher, suggesting he should get a real job. She refused to eat at my friend Daniel's food truck, dismissing it as street food. Despite these red flags, I overlooked them, attributing her behavior to stress or ambition. When I proposed to Delia, I spent 3 months designing a custom ring with a local jeweler, aiming for something unique rather than traditional. She seemed thrilled, sharing the news enthusiastically with friends and family. 2 weeks before our engagement, Delia's parents came to our house to help with the preparations. Her father was reserved, and her mother mirrored Delia's obsession with appearance. One evening, I came home early, intending to surprise everyone by making a reservation at a new restaurant that Delia had hinted at. When I walked in, I heard a conversation between Delia and her mother in the kitchen. "Mom, stop talking about Graham already," Delia said in an exasperated voice. "I'm just worried, honey. Is this really what you want? A mediocre life with a graphic designer?" My mother replied in a dismissive tone. I froze, picked up my phone and started recording, my heart pounding as Delia answered, "It's temporary. He's just a replacement until someone with real potential comes along. He's stable, his little design thing gives him a flexible schedule, so he can run my errands, and he thinks I'm out of his league." Her words were like a punch in the gut. But the conversation continued. "What about the wedding photos?" Her mother whispered. "You'll be looking at his face in them forever." Delia laughed, a sound that now seemed cold. "His face isn't even worthy of being in our wedding photos. I've already talked to Jules about a photography package. She can work magic with angles and lighting to minimize it as much as possible." Jules, our wedding photographer who Delia insisted on hiring despite the high cost. Now I understood why. "And what if someone better comes along before the wedding?" her mother asked. "Then I'll figure it out." "Breaking an engagement is better than a divorce," Delia replied nonchalantly. I must have made a noise because they suddenly fell silent. I backed out quietly, got into my car, and drove aimlessly for hours, trying to process the betrayal. The woman I loved, whom I planned to spend my life with, saw me as a mere placeholder, not even worthy of appearing in our wedding photos. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the couch staring into nothing, my mind looping that awful conversation like a broken record. The words echoed. "He's just a placeholder. His face isn't even worth putting in our wedding photos." I couldn't believe I had spent 4 years building a life with someone who saw me as temporary, a tool for errands, comfort, and convenience. I didn't confront Delia right away. I told her I had a last-minute client emergency and spent the next day pretending like everything was fine. She barely looked up from her phone when I got home, only asking if I'd remembered her dry cleaning. I had. Of course I had. That's what placeholders do. But something in me shifted. I wasn't going to yell or plead or cry. I needed her to see what she'd done, really see it. So I made a plan. One that started with a simple instinct. I pulled out my phone and recorded everything I had overheard. The audio was clear enough, but I sent it to a friend of mine, Clint, a sound engineer I'd worked with on several ad projects. He cleaned it up, enhanced the voices, removed background noise. When he sent it back, every word was sharp. Undeniable. Next, I reached out to Renner, a former classmate from design school who now ran a wedding photography business. He'd taken a different route, photos, not graphics, but we'd stayed in touch over the years. I need your help, I told him. This is going to be different. He agreed to shoot the engagement party but asked, "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "I've never been more certain," I said. I paid him 3 times his usual rate and told him to focus on candids. Real emotion. Raw moments. Then, the toughest call, Tessa. She was one of Delia's oldest friends. A tattoo artist, confident and grounded. Delia always seemed oddly threatened by her. She'd say things like, "I don't know how Tessa expects people to take her seriously," looking like a walking sketchbook. I met Tessa for coffee and, without much introduction, played the recording. Her expression shifted from confusion to anger to something close to heartbreak. "That's awful," she said. "Are you okay?" That was the first time anyone had asked me that. I wasn't, but I nodded. I explained my plan, and without hesitation, she said, "Whatever you need." I'm in. Delia spent the rest of the week obsessing over the final party details. She texted constantly, confirming seating arrangements, tableware, music, catering. I replied to everything with robotic politeness. Inside, I was numb. The night before the party, we were in bed. Well, she was in bed. I told her I needed to finish a design revision and slept on the couch. She didn't ask why. Didn't notice. That was the first night we didn't sleep together since moving in. And then came the party. It was a Saturday evening. The venue, a refurbished industrial loft with brick walls and string lights, looked stunning. Delia had poured herself into this event, and it showed. Every corner had been staged to perfection. It didn't feel like a celebration of love. It felt like a photo shoot. Guests arrived gradually, her co-workers in tailored suits and cocktail dresses, my parents, who always looked slightly out of place at things like this, and the handful of friends Delia allowed me to invite. Renner was already working the room, snapping shots silently, blending in like a pro. He gave me a quick nod when I passed. Tessa showed up in a deep red dress, her tattoos proudly visible. She looked radiant. Delia's eyes narrowed when she saw her, but she smiled through it like nothing was wrong. I played along too, until it was time. Midway through the evening, after drinks had been flowing and everyone was mingling comfortably, I tapped my glass. "May I have your attention?" I said, standing beside Delia, who was already holding her wine like it was an Oscar speech. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate our engagement. Before we continue, I'd like to share a small moment that really helped me understand what this relationship means to Delia." Delia looked confused but kept smiling. I nodded to the venue's AV technician, who had prepped the audio. And then, the recording played. Crystal clear. Delia's voice rang through the room. "He's just a placeholder. Someone better will come along. His face isn't even worth putting in our wedding photos. I've already talked to Jules, we'll minimize him." Gasps. A few people dropped their drinks. Her friends stared. My parents looked devastated. And Delia, her face slowly drained of all color. Her smile disappeared. She started to move, maybe to stop the audio, maybe to protest, but it was too late. I let the full clip play. Every word. Her mother, the cruel laughter, the comments about Tessa's appearance and worth. When it ended, I turned to the room. "I think it's pretty clear the placeholder is stepping aside," I said. I pulled the ring from my pocket, turned to her father, and handed it to him. "I believe this belongs to your daughter." Silence. Delia's father stood up without a word, placed the ring box on the table, and walked out. Her mother tried to rally the crowd. "Everyone, it's been misunderstood. Delia was under stress. Wedding planning can make people say things they don't mean." But no one moved. Some of her friends were already on their phones. Others were murmuring to each other. I looked over and saw Renner capturing it all. He gave me a look, not of judgment, but quiet approval. And then Tessa stepped forward. She didn't say anything. Just walked over and gently took my hand. And we walked out. Outside, it was cold. Tessa wrapped her shawl around her shoulders, and we stood there for a moment, breathing in the silence. Delia came after us, screaming. "You think you've ruined me? You've ruined yourself. Who does this to someone they love? You've always been jealous," she shrieked, first at Tessa, then at me. But I didn't say anything. Neither of us did. We just walked away. To a nearby bar. A hole in the wall with bad lighting and great music. I loosened the tie Delia had picked, ordered a drink she'd hate, and for the first time in 4 years, I breathed. I crashed at Marcus's place that night. Slept on his old futon like we were back in college, except this time I wasn't just dodging exams, I was dodging the implosion of my personal life. My phone buzzed all night. Dozens of missed calls. Dozens more texts. Most from Delia. Some from her mom. A few from mutual friends asking things like, "What the heck happened? Did that really play over the speakers? Was it real?" I didn't answer any of them. By the time morning came, I'd already made my decision. I called my landlord, explained the situation, and paid the fee to break the lease on our apartment. Arranged to have movers come by that afternoon and pick up my things. I didn't want to spend another night in that space. Money well spent. Later that day, Renner sent over the photos. I wasn't sure what to expect. He's always been great with composition and lighting, but what he captured that night was different. These weren't just pictures of a party. They were a photo essay of collapse. You could see the precise moment Delia realized the recording was playing. The second her mask cracked. Her hands twitching toward the mic. Her mother's face caught mid-excuse. People turning, whispering, some outright staring in disbelief. I picked a few of the most telling images and sent them, along with the audio file, to Tessa. She handled the rest. Within hours, everyone Delia knew had the recording. Her co-workers. Her extended family. Even mutual friends we'd met just once or twice. Those who weren't at the party now had a front row seat. It wasn't about revenge. I wasn't out to destroy her. But I'd lived in her carefully curated story for 4 years. People deserved to know who she really was, especially the ones who might become her next placeholder. The response came in waves. Some friends texted messages of support. Others messaged things like, "I always felt something was off about her. Man, I'm sorry. That was brutal. But also, necessary." One of her old college roommates even thanked me, saying Delia had pulled the same manipulative act on her years ago, just in a different context. The social circle we shared cracked down the middle. And for the first time, I wasn't the one trying to patch it together. Delia's reaction came swiftly. Day 1, denial. She showed up at Marcus's building that night. No warning. Just started banging on his door, screaming that I'd twisted everything, that the audio was taken out of context. Marcus opened the door halfway and said calmly, "Delia, if you don't leave, I'll call the police." She left. Furious. Day 2, desperation. She sent long messages, apologies, explanations, promises of change. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. You know how my mom gets in my head. Please let's talk. We can fix this. She emailed me a list of couples counselors. Sent playlists of our favorite songs. Old photos. Long, rambling texts about memories and futures. I didn't respond. Day 3, strategy. The apologies stopped. The accusations began. She started calling my clients, telling them I was unstable, unprofessional. That I had violated her privacy. Tried to get me blacklisted in local design circles. Fortunately, my reputation spoke for itself. I'd worked with many of these clients for years. 2 of them actually called to check in asking if I was alright, and if I was still available for upcoming projects. Days 4 to 9, the campaign. She began spinning new stories. Some people told me she was saying I'd hacked her phone to get the audio. Others heard I'd staged the party to humiliate her out of spite. But by then, it didn't matter. The truth wasn't just in the audio, it was in the way people responded to it. They'd heard her voice. They'd seen her reaction. And I wasn't just healing, I was rising. Business picked up unexpectedly. Maybe people appreciated the clarity. Maybe they respected that I hadn't responded with pettiness, just transparency. I was finally getting inquiries from clients I dreamed of working with. Agencies that once never returned my emails now asked for proposals. Then came the message from Kay, Delia's younger sister. She wanted to meet. Kay had always been different. Grounded. Quiet, but perceptive. I never had the same tension with her as I did with Delia's mom. She walked into my studio carrying coffee and a look that said, "I should have done this sooner." "I owe you an apology," she said right away. "Why?" I asked, genuinely confused. "I saw the signs. I knew she was using you. I even tried to warn you. Remember that dinner, about a year ago? When I asked about your future plans?" I nodded slowly. "I thought you were just making conversation. I was trying to figure out if you were actually happy." Delia wouldn't let you finish a sentence. She always hijacked your answers. We sat for an hour. She showed me texts, old ones, where Delia bragged about how she was leveling up by dating me. That my business contacts in the advertising world were the real asset. "Delia's done this before," Kay admitted. "To Jax, before you. He worked in the restaurant scene. She used his connections, then dropped in when someone with more influence came along." I wasn't shocked. Just tired. Before Kay left, she said, "I always thought your work was amazing, by the way. Still need a logo for my bakery. Let me know." And with that, she left. Meanwhile, Delia's spiral continued. She showed up outside my studio late one night, crying, yelling, begging. Security escorted her away. Then came the group messages, her accusing me of emotional manipulation, trying to turn people against her. No one really bought it. Renner messaged me a few days later. Apparently, Delia had offered him $5,000 to delete the photos from the party. He recorded the conversation, just in case. "Thought you might want the audio," he said. "You know, if there's ever a sequel." The truth is, I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But in exposing her behavior, I'd unknowingly created something powerful: space. Space for honesty. For actual respect. For the kind of relationships where no one is a placeholder. And most of all, space for myself. Nearly a year passed. I'd moved to Austin by then. New studio. New clients. New rhythm. The city felt alive in a way my old one never had. Like I'd walked into a space that fit me instead of shrinking myself to fit into someone else's world. My business was growing faster than I'd imagined. I brought on 2 junior designers, expanded into commercial branding, and even started guest lecturing at a local design school. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Tessa and I kept in touch. She visited a few times. We collaborated on a local mural project, and slowly, we grew into something more than just mutual survivors of Delia's orbit. We weren't rushing anything. Just taking our time. And then came Zach's wedding, the first time I'd been back to my old city since the engagement party. Zach was one of my longtime clients and friends. He'd been at the party, had watched everything unravel, and still stuck by me. I wasn't going to miss his big day, even if it meant stepping back into familiar territory. The rehearsal dinner was in a sleek rooftop space downtown. Elegant, intimate, filled with laughter. Then I saw her. Delia. She walked in on the arm of a tall, well-dressed man who looked like a real estate developer right out of a networking seminar. His name was Clark, and I later learned he was the cousin of Zach's bride. Small world. Delia spotted me instantly. Her eyes widened for a second, but she quickly smoothed her expression into something she must have practiced in a mirror. She approached with Clark, introduced him with exaggerated pride. "Clark's company is handling 4 downtown redevelopment projects right now." She said it like she was trying to audition for a commercial. Clark gave a polite nod. Delia smiled tightly at me. I smiled back. But I didn't flinch. I didn't gloat. I just asked Zach about the wine selection and went back to my conversation with his college buddies. Being unbothered wasn't an act. It was freedom. The next night, the wedding reception, was where it all came full circle. Clark had gotten deep into the champagne. Friendly drunk. Started asking everyone how they knew Delia. Someone, casually, mentioned she'd been engaged before. To who, he asked. The person nodded toward me. I was at the bar when I felt a hand on my shoulder. Turned, and there he was, glass in hand, bow tie slightly askew. "Hey," Clark said, lowering his voice. "Were you, really engaged to Delia?" I nodded once. "Yep." He frowned. "She told me she only had one serious boyfriend before me. Brief thing. Nothing major." I took a sip of my drink. Different versions of history, I guess. "What happened?" he asked. I looked him in the eye. Ask her about our engagement party. Someone here might still have the photos. Then I walked away. An hour later, chaos. Apparently, Zach's brother still had the recording and photos saved on his phone. And yes, he shared them. I missed the initial reveal, but from what I was told, Clark listened to the whole thing. Word spread fast. Delia tried to explain, said it was an old argument taken out of context. That I had edited it. That she was being targeted. Clark didn't buy it. He stormed off. She followed, trying to grab his arm, whispering, pleading. But he left. Alone. The next day, Kay texted me. You're not going to believe this. Clark found texts on Delia's phone. Messages to her friends calling him a walking checkbook with property connections and making fun of his hairline. He forwarded them to his cousin. She sent them to the entire family group chat. Delia is now blacklisted from half the city's real estate events. It's epic. That night, Tessa flew into town. We grabbed tacos at a place near my studio. Sat under string lights, the kind that reminded me of that night at the venue, but this time, without tension. Without an audience. Just peace. She asked if I'd heard about Delia's latest fallout. I did, I said. But honestly? I don't even feel anything about it. She nodded, smiling. That's how you know you're free. We didn't talk much about the past after that. It had served its purpose. It was behind us. So, where am I now? I'm still designing. Still loving it. Still working with clients who respect what I bring to the table. Tessa and I are officially together now. She's considering relocating to Austin full-time. Her tattoo studio already has a waitlist down here. Turns out, there's a thriving art scene that embraces bold creativity. Kay and I stay in touch too. I helped her launch branding for her bakery. She sent me a thank you basket filled with the most ridiculous gourmet scones I've ever seen. Delia? I haven't heard from her in months. Maybe she's still out there trying to curate the perfect narrative. Or maybe she's finally being honest with herself. I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. If you've stuck with this story till the end, thank you. I didn't share it to shame anyone. I shared it because, for a long time, I didn't believe I had the right to take up space in someone's life. I thought being good enough meant being useful, agreeable, easy to mold. But real relationships, romantic, platonic, professional, they aren't built on usefulness. They're built on mutual respect. On being seen, not sculpted. If you're reading this and you feel like a placeholder in someone's life, I hope you find the courage to step out of that box. You don't need someone else's permission to be permanent. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.